Hello, I'm Carren Strock, and I'm the author of this book, Secret Survivors. This is a tale of courage, determination, and survival. Chapter 1, A Strange Feeling. Lori held 2-year-old Joey to her as his mother's car slowly rounded the corner and disappeared on the snow-covered road. Her skin felt cold and prickly. Something horrible was going to happen. She just knew it. Ugly gray clouds flew across the sky. A garbage can rolled down the snow-packed road and slammed into a huge mound of snow. All anyone talked about was a really bad blizzard that had hit this part of the country many years ago, before Lori was even born. Now, people were saying that this winter was going to be the worst of all. The temperature had been in the single digits for more than a month. It was so cold that the school superintendent had decided to close the schools. But Lori wasn't concerned. Because of the closing, she was going to Florida with her mom and dad and her brother Pete. She'd already decided to wear her bathing suit under her heavy clothes so that as soon as she arrived at her grandparents' house, she could jump into their pool. Joey squirmed in Lori's arms. "Play, play," he said. Lori let the curtain fall back into place. She tousled his curly blonde hair and put him down. She didn't like babysitting or little kids in general, but Joey was sort of special to her. He had been born just after she moved here, right on her 11th birthday. Besides, her allowance was so lame, if she didn't babysit, it would take forever to save up for her new iPhone. Joey dragged his box of blocks over to Lori. 6-month-old Connor, in his wind-up swing, gurgled happily beside them as they stacked the blocks higher and higher. When Lori carefully placed the last block on top of the tall tower and stepped away, Joey knocked the whole thing down. Lori acted surprised, and the little boy jumped up and down, clapping his hands and laughing. He never tired of this game. Connor began to fuss, and Lori pulled him out of his swing. She sighed. School closings used to be fun, but now days off were boring, and it was all her mom's fault. "We're going to be trailblazers, pioneers," her mom had said when she persuaded Lori's dad and some of their friends to buy land far away on a Colorado mountain. They cleared the forest and built 5 houses with lots of space and trees in between. Her idea was that more people would buy land and build, and there would be more kids. Then the economy crashed. Lori always liked to find something good to make the bad less bad. The bad was that she had to leave New York City and all of her friends. Her mom and dad just said, "Guess what? We're moving." Lori had felt so helpless. They hadn't even asked her if she wanted to move. But the good news was that she met Amy, her new best friend, and Mary Elizabeth, too. And she found that she loved living in and hiking in the wilderness. In the summer, she could make her way down to Amy's house through the gorge. But once the snows fell and the river swelled, she could only see her friends if her brother Pete drove her around the mountain. Pete was a senior in high school, and he had a driver's license. In exchange for getting to use their mom's car, he was supposed to drive Lori to her friends or to the mall, but he never did unless Lori did all of his chores. Lori had tried to tell on him, but her mom just said, "You two are old enough to work out your own differences." Pete had sniggered so only Lori could hear him. She'd stomped off. "No wonder I hate boys," she'd whispered under her breath. Anyway, Lori had been eating a salami sandwich for breakfast and thinking about tomorrow's trip to Florida when Mrs. K called her to babysit. "Sure," she said. "I'll be right over." She'd already packed for the trip and had nothing better to do. Pete was at his friend Tony's. Her mom, a realtor, was showing houses on the other side of the city, and her dad was at a convention and wasn't due back until evening. Lori went back to the window. The angry clouds whizzing by made her head spin. The strange feeling that something bad was going to happen came again. Chapter 2, Weird People. Lori turned on Sesame Street. It was Joey's favorite show, but she also turned it on to drown out the sound of the strong winds whistling around the house. Then she warmed Connor's bottle. After she fed him, she slipped Connor into his blanket sleeper and tucked him into his crib upstairs. When Big Bird said goodbye, Lori brought Joey up for a nap, too. The window shuttles rattled so hard they scared him, and she had to read 5 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed 2 times before he finally fell asleep, clutching Puppy, his favorite stuffed toy, to him. It was still morning, but outside the sky was getting darker and darker. Snow began to fall. From the front window, Lori could see the lights on in the Brennan's house way down the road. That Russell person was living there. Lori texted Amy. Amy texted back MOS, short for Mother Over Shoulder, and then L8R, later. Lori wrote LYLAS, love you like a sister. They signed all of their texts like that. She clicked off her cell, flipped on the radio, and made herself a cup of hot chocolate. Then she opened her book. She was reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows for the third time. Even though she already knew who was going to die, it was still a good read. For some reason, though, she couldn't concentrate. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She shivered and walked back to the window. Large flakes of snow swirled and whipped around in the wind. She zipped up her hoodie and returned to Harry Potter. The weatherman said, forecast is for more snow, 8 to 12 inches. There's so much snow on the ground already, a few more inches won't matter, Lori thought. So why is this weird feeling with me? The phone rang. Good morning, K residence, Lori said. She reached for the message pad and the pencil on the end table. Her mom said she didn't think she was responsible, but Mrs. K did. She was always telling everyone how capable Lori was. Lori, it's Russell. Russell who? Lori knew exactly who he was, but he made her so angry that she couldn't help being mean to him. 3 weeks ago, Russell had moved in with his aunt and uncle and his 3-year-old cousin Emma because his parents were doing some special work for the government and needed to be traveling around the world. Lori and Amy got really excited when they heard a 14-year-old boy was moving to the mountain. Amy stayed over at Lori's house, and both girls watched from Lori's porch all day so they wouldn't miss him. Oh my God, he's so cute, Amy squealed when the boy with dark wavy brown hair slowly drove past in Mr. Brennan's car. Lori thought he was cute too, until she got to know him. Lori, can you hear me? It's Russell Thompson. I was in your science class, remember, before my schedule was revised? Oh, she remembered all right. She tightened her hold on the phone. How did you know where I was, and how did you get this number? I saw you going to the K's earlier, and I Googled their number. Any simpleton could do that. You just hit anywho.com. Lori had no idea what anywho.com was, but trying to sound superior, she said, well, some people don't have time to just sit and play at a computer. What do you want? She didn't want to talk to him any longer than she had to. Besides, what would Amy think if she heard that Lori had been speaking to Russell after they'd made a pact not to? My aunt and uncle are attending a business seminar. I'm alone with Emma and... Lori cut him off. She knew about the seminar. That was why she was babysitting. Russell's aunt and uncle were going to watch Joey and Connor, but at the last minute decided to join the K's. So nothing, Lori. But the wind velocity is escalating and the snowfall is intensifying. I'm from the south. Sun, rain, a sporadic hurricane, but never a blizzard. Are there any precautions one normally takes with conditions such as these? Are you kidding? Wait till I tell Amy about this, Lori thought. She'll just die. Sporadic? Precautions? Listen, Russell, I'm busy. Go back to your dictionary. Goodbye. You couldn't have a regular conversation with him if you wanted to. Lori tried to tell her mom how weird Russell was, but she just never got it, or she didn't really hear what Lori said. Her mom's response was, I'm sure he's a fine boy. He just doesn't know anyone here, so you have to be nice to him. Lori wanted to say, excuse me, why should I have to be nice to him? I'm not the welcoming committee. But she knew a comment like that could get her grounded, and she was already in trouble for not doing the dishes, so she kept her mouth shut. Lori wrapped herself in a fleece blanket on the couch and sipped her hot chocolate. Oh, why did I say I'd babysit, she wondered. The lights flickered. Mrs. K kept a small emergency flashlight in her junk drawer. Lori pulled it out and put it in her pocket, just in case. The wind shook the windows. There was a pounding at the door. Chapter 3. An emergency arises. Quick, Mrs. K. Quick, get Mrs. K. Mrs. Brown hollered frantically when she saw Lori through the window. Lori recognized her neighbor and opened the door. She's not here. I'm babysitting. Oh, no. Mrs. K's hand went to her head. Then, before Lori could say anything, she pushed Bailey, her 5-year-old, and Braden, the brattiest kid in the community, into the hallway. She pointed to the road and the car half hidden by the snowbank. Mrs. Sullivan's in the car, and she's going to have a new baby, Bailey announced excitedly, her long red braids bouncing up and down as she hopped on one foot to the other beside her mother. Then Braden shoved Bailey aside. My mother's having the baby. It's going to be my baby. Please, I've got to get her to the hospital. I'll be back as soon as I can. She turned and hurried back to the car. Lori turned to Braden. The gum-cracking 8-year-old had an "I dare you" look on his face. She cringed. Braden was the worst. Her mom had told her that he had a lot of issues. He was adopted and biracial, and his mom was preoccupied with her pregnancy, and his dad was in the army on active duty. Lori didn't care if he was adopted or born to Mrs. Sullivan the regular way, and she didn't care if he was black or white or red or green. She didn't think any of that gave him the right to be a brat. He just needs to be put in a cage, preferably on another planet, she had said. Her mom had actually smiled. Bailey stood in the hallway, chewing on a curl at the end of one of her braids and surveying the living room scattered with Joey's blocks. Braden pushed her out of his way and dived for the couch. He found the remote and turned the television on, full blast. Before Lori could grab it to lower the volume, baby Connor began to cry, and Joey called down, "Yori, I waked up. I wants out. Whoa, Yori, I waked up." Lori sat Bailey down across the room from Braden. "Braden, you stay put or else," she warned him as she went upstairs to get the 2 little boys. There was a shrill sound. The Cartoon Network went off the air. "We interrupt this television program to give you a weather update. A traveler's advisory has been put into effect through this evening. Snow accumulating an additional 8 to 10 inches. Temperatures dropping below zero." The television died. The lights went out. The house grew darker. Lori pulled the flashlight out of her pocket and went into the pantry, where she found Mrs. K's battery-operated emergency lamp. She tried having the kids make shadow pictures on the wall. That kept them busy for maybe 5 minutes. Then she pulled out crayons and paper and got the kids tracing their hands. Slowly, very slowly, an hour passed. The temperature in the house dropped. She put Connor and Joey into their snowsuits. Braden and Bailey put their jackets on. "What am I going to do?" Lori thought. "We've lost power before, but when I was home with my mom and dad, never while I was babysitting. I need to talk to a mature person." Lori called Amy, but a recording said, "All circuits are busy. Please try your call at a later time." She redialed and got a busy signal. She tried calling her second best friend, Mary Elizabeth, and got another busy signal. She even tried to call her brother at Tony's house, but Tony's line was busy too. "I'll bet that boy Russell down the road isn't talking to anyone," Lori thought. Out of sheer desperation, she shifted Connor in her arms and reached for the phone, just as it rang. "Lori, it's Russell. Have you looked outside recently? Your house is barely visible. This looks like the onset of a bad storm to me." Connor spit up on Lori's shoulder. "Russell, we have snow every winter, all winter. It's no big deal." "Forget it, Lori. Sorry I called. I won't bother you again." "Wait, I guess I deserve that. Is the electric on at your house?" "No. That means you don't have any heat either." "I know precisely what that means. The winds must have downed the power lines and shut down the gas furnaces. What can we do?" Lori bit her fingernail. "So now it's we? Would you like me to trot down to the basement and fabricate a generator? I could run lines through." He probably could do that too, whatever fabricate meant, Lori thought. "I'll be right over to give you a hand." Lori wanted to say, "No, I don't need your help," but before she could say anything, he hung up. Chapter 3, The Chaos Mounts. Everyone watched for Russell at the front window as the storm raged on. I see him, Bailey hollered as a figurehead over his lowered head made its way through the blustering snow. Braden pushed her aside. "I saw him first." Lori stepped between them. "Oh, God, why me? This is only supposed to happen in movies," she whispered, putting her forehead against the cold glass. Russell climbed over one huge mound and then another. He paused to shift a bundle in his arms. When he finally reached the house, Lori opened the door and he stumbled in. She forced the door closed against the wind. The bundle he carried began to move. His little cousin Emma squirmed free of the large blanket he'd wrapped her in. Russell looked at the group staring at him. 4 kids? "I know exactly how many kids I have here," Lori said, doing nothing to disguise her irritation. "Bailey and Braden were left with me. His mother is," she nodded toward Braden, "is going to have a baby," Bailey finished Lori's sentence, "and my mommy's driving her to the hospital," she said proudly. Lori led everyone back to the kitchen. Braden grabbed one chair and Bailey another near his. He pulled her hair. She screamed. "You touch her one more time and you're going to be dead meat," Lori warned Braden. "And Bailey, you stay away from Braden so he won't hurt you." "But I like him," Bailey said. Braden grabbed his throat, stuck out his tongue, and made a vomiting noise. "Let's close all the upstairs doors so we can preserve what little heat we have," Russell said. Lori squeezed her fists tightly together and whispered through clenched jaws, "Don't you tell me what to do. If you want to close the doors, go and close them yourself." She handed out chocolate chip cookies. Braden pulled a wad of gum out of his mouth and stuck it on the table. Lori stared him down. He got up and threw it in the trash can. Then, before she could wrestle the package away from him, he grabbed a fistful of cookies and shoved them into his mouth. The phone rang. Bailey jumped up. "I'll get it." "No, me." Braden twisted Bailey's arm and grabbed the receiver. Bailey shrieked. Lori grabbed the phone out of Braden's hand. A disconnect. "God, I hate that brat," she whispered. The phone rang again. Again Bailey went for it, and again Braden pushed her out of his way. This time she hit him. "Good," Lori said as she grabbed the receiver. "You deserve that." "Lori, it's Mrs. Brown. Is everything all right?" Lori wanted to tell her what was going on, but she didn't have to. Mrs. Brown could hear the commotion in the background. "Is that Braden?" "As usual." "Oh, Lori, I'm really sorry, but the roads are bad and we haven't reached the hospital yet. I'll call you as soon as we do. Can you manage a while longer?" I suppose so. What other choices do I have?" Braden was just about to pull Bailey's hair once again. Lori glared at him, and he dropped his hand to the side. "Tell Mrs. Sullivan I hope she has a girl." Luckily, the Kays had a portable DVD player. Lori saw it on the shelf and put it on the coffee table. She popped Frozen into the drive. Bailey sat down on the rug in front of the monitor. "She's blocking the screen. I can't see." Braden pushed her aside. Russell moved Bailey to the couch and sat down beside her and Braden. Emma, unusually quiet, curled up on her cousin's lap. With baby Connor in her arms and Joey hanging on to the pocket of her hoodie, Lori went back to the window. She could see bits of dark gray sky through the blasting snows. She prayed that Mrs. Brown would be back soon to collect Braden and Bailey. Her cell phone rang. She reached into her jeans pocket. "Hi, Lori, it's Mom. Why didn't you answer the home phone?" "I'm at the case." "What? I can hardly hear you. Bad connection." "Mom, Sweetheart, we're in for a bit more snow. May take me hours to get home. But Mom, Her phone went dead. That creepy feeling came back. The house phone rang again. Bailey dived for it. Braden tackled her to the floor and ripped the receiver out of her hands. "Give it here, you turd, or I'll break your arm." "He's hurting me," Bailey screamed, fending off Braden's foot. "Stop kicking her," Lori hissed as she grabbed the receiver. Russell pulled Braden away. Now Mrs. K was screaming into the phone. Lori, what's going on? Who's in my house?" "The monster Braden. His mother's having her baby, and Bailey, her mother, drove Mrs. Sullivan to the hospital, and—" "Oh, no, not today, not now. Lori, I don't know when we'll get home. The snows, the visibility is so bad. I'm glad I can count on you." Lori turned away from the kids for 1 second to hang up the phone. "Ouch," Bailey cried, pulling her braid out of Braden's grasp. "I'm starving." Braden kicked a block across the floor. "Me too," Bailey hollered. Joey clung to Lori's leg. She'd forgotten about lunch. She pulled her cell phone out of her pocket. "Darn, it died. What time do you have?" Russell pulled up his sleeve and looked at his watch. "This is a Swiss Luminex. It contains titanium inserts and provides long-term luminescence." Lori rolled her eyes. "It figures that you'd be using a watch. I didn't ask for a lecture, and I don't care what it provides. I just want the time." "It's 2:30, Russell said. Lori made jelly sandwiches and handed them out. Then, just as she finished giving Connor his bottle, they heard a loud crash at the front of the house. Everyone froze.